Hey traders, let's review today's market internals, May 24th, 2023. The trend today was a lot more active in showing us that we were in a balance. We started off right at the beginning underneath the session TWAP, and the first couple bars were showing us that we're not going to have too strong a reaction on this gap. So add and Vold both started red. We had a slight divergence with the 20 SMA trend on the Vold, but that was quickly ended right here on close at 9:40. So just 10 minutes into the opening session, still under TWAP, and we basically rode the lower deviation of TWAP for the rest of the morning until about 10:30. We had a decent attempt at testing fair value based on the tick extremes. None of the setups here were really going to work that well according to the data anyways, with trend being in the balance zone with these yellow dots. You can also see from Tuesday yesterday we had a nice heavy tick close, and the tick closures on average were below the zero line, and that trend basically just continued right as we opened up today. So right as we head into noon, things get a little interesting. We're testing standard deviation lows, and we finally reclaim TWAP. We come to the upper deviation and strongly reject all the way back down. Now at this point, we've had a extreme closure at the low end and at the high end. And looking at this, I'm still seeing that the add and Vold bands for the New York Stock Exchange are red. They've oscillated a little bit on their trends, but for the most part, we're not going anywhere on price. So if you notice the particular area where we had strong ticks, we tested that level right here, happened to align with the standard deviation upper boundary, and then we had a strong rejection all the way back down to the lower deviation with a strong closure. So by this point, I'm pretty much reading this as what trend shows is exactly what's going on. We're in a balance. I'm favoring downside more because it's in alignment with the add and Vold, as I have mentioned in the past. I like to trade in alignment with the add and the Vold, but in this case, trend's showing us a balance, the price is showing us a balance, and we're just oscillating much like we were yesterday. We're oscillating between the TWAP bands. So if you're into options and you can do iron condors or credit spreads, strangles, things of that nature, this was a pretty good day to deploy some of that. I actually did do some selling on calls midday today on SPY 0 days. That worked pretty well. Right around our normal time that I like to talk about, 12:30, we did start to make a move up, but really choppy. Trend still showing balance. And if you took some longs here, you're basically just calling bottoms, which you can totally do when we're oscillating between these two bands. I think it's fair to take longs from here up and take shorts from here back down. The thing is there's no telling when that trend will end of oscillating between these bands unless we start seeing a nice strong reversal pattern forming on the MIT down here, and I just didn't see any evidence of that. Around 2 o'clock, we see, after having failed the upper boundaries of the TWAP standard deviation, we lose TWAP again and we come back down, and now trend is not in a balance. It's not in an imbalance and it's not in a balance. It's kind of mixed. That means there's a potential for perhaps some kind of a trade setup. Now, if I enable the metrics table here, we can use replay to see at the time what trend would have been. So trend is at 1.14. Trend is still very much in that range of potential chop, potential for reversal back into the balance zone. That's not really something that I would consider to be worthy of longs if you're using trend. You can obviously ignore a myriad of the collection here and just use tick to do some scalps. That is one thing I can say is, when we have range-based days like we had today, you can just use tick. You can say, all right, I see that on the majority. This level on tick here, somewhere around 900, that seems to be the floor. We see prices mostly saying the same thing. So you can just use tick that anytime we're at low extremes, you can scalp that up, right? You don't have to have confluence with everything else. That's just what I like to do, and I find that's what works really well for me when I'm doing my trend continuation entries. Obviously today is not a trending day. End of the day, around 3, we do see a nice rip up here. We finally break the standard deviation and we have a hard stop here. Now, if I open up the monthly TWAP here, this is a monthly TWAP fair price. We actually rejected that, near perfectly. So that was very cool to see. I actually did grab a zero day spike call here, a NAB 200%, and I sold out right when TWAP monthly was being tested. I actually closed on this candle here, so didn't quite hit, but knowing this was roughly the high of the day where we had opened, I wasn't going to take any chances knowing that I had a 0-day contract. So as I said in yesterday's video, if you hold for 1,000% gainer, a lot of times that just doesn't work. I was happy with the 200%. Here you can see the effectiveness of using the TWAP on different time frames. So whether it be monthly or weekly or whatever, it is showing here that it's an effective tool for a dynamic profit target or just an area where perhaps a reversal could be potentially observed. If you were short here, that definitely would have worked as well. So that would have been in alignment with the add and volt bands. We're printing high extremes here on tick. It's only the second other time we have done that. It's also near relative highs for the day. That was a really nice short setup. So you had a really good one right here. Tons of volatility. Would have made that trade very fast. That is mostly the review. I will turn tick levels on so you can see that. No big surprise here. Really thick tick levels because of all of the extremes hitting right around the same areas. So that feature is working as it should. The bottoms, the tops, that mid chop area around fair value on the TWAP, all printing thick levels here. So no surprise. So this is just a really nasty day for anybody that's trying to trade a trending move. You're not really going to see that on a day like today. So we did have FOMC minutes. That resulted in almost nothing being printed here. We're still under the weekly TWAP here on this orange line. We just tested monthly and rejected. So anything goes, I suppose, for tomorrow. I know Nvidia had earnings, so that's really jacked the market up. It should provide some exciting trading for tomorrow. Let's take a quick look here at the Qs. Yeah, much the same. Even its monthly TWAP was tested on that rip. No surprise. Let's take a look at the Russell. Okay, so Russell was even tighter of a range. Multiple rejections, oscillating the fair value here, and it didn't even make it to test the monthly. Now, interestingly though, the monthly TWAP was actually where Russell opened and tested, right there. So let's see. Yeah, SPY actually did as well. I hadn't noticed that earlier. Q did not. Q was weaker, I guess, in that regard. So that's interesting. This concludes the internal review for May 24th, 2023. And as always, happy trading. Thanks for watching.